Hey guys, we're talking about the Unit 10.5 Equations of Circles notes. So hopefully you have all this written down already, and I will just go through the examples with you. Basically by the end of this you should be able to write the equation of a circle, and it looks like this. You also will be able to identify the center and the radius of the circle. So one thing that is important for you to notice is that these letters H and K are the center of your circle. So that is H. And then let me get another color, K. K is going to be right there. Alright, so H is the x value of the center of your circle, and it's located there in the equation. K is the y value of your circle, and it's located there in the equation. So you can kind of think of this like you would think of just a normal slope-intercept equation, where it's y equals mx plus b, and you plug like the slope into the m, and the b is the y-intercept. So it's the same idea here. Like the x and the y are going to stay. You will plug numbers into the h, the k, into the r, and the r is the radius. Okay, I guess I should circle the radius in a different color. And highlight it here so you can see it. Probably shouldn't have highlighted the squared part, because notice this is the radius squared and this is the radius. So we're going to use this idea where our x value, y value, and radius are in the equation. We're going to plug them in down here. So I went ahead and wrote the equation down, so it's just in the same screen. You may want to pause the video and do that real quick. But what we're going to do first is we will identify the center of this circle, which is kind of hard to see, so I went ahead and filled the dot in so we could see it. The center is actually in the very middle. It's on the origin for this one. So 0, 0 is the center. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Our center is 0, 0. So that is our h value and our k value, 0 and 0. And then we want to figure out what the radius is. So what we need to do is count from the center out to the edge of the circle. So notice these go by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So just pay attention to the picture and what it looks like when you're counting, because that's really easy to look at it and think it's 4 and then you get it wrong. But the radius here is actually 8. So what we want to do is take these letters, so our H, our K, and our R, and plug them in to this formula that we've been given. So we've got x minus, our H is going to be 0. Okay, I'm just going to write that in. Our y is going to stay the same. Our k is also going to be 0, and that's squared. Our radius is going to be 8. So what I did was I plugged all of these things in, but then now I can simplify them, because it won't look like this to end with. So anytime the center does not move at all from the origin, what happens is that the x is just going to end up as x squared, because we're not subtracting anything from it. Okay, so since it's a 0, the y will also just become y squared, and then we need to square this 8 to get 64. And that is the equation of our circle. Alright, we've just written the equation of this circle right here, and all we had to do was find the center and the radius to be able to do that. Okay, let's do it again, but it's going to be a little more difficult on this one because it varies some. The center is now at 2, 2. Okay, and then the radius is at, alright, we can count to the edge, so it would go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes up 4 this way. Let's make sure it's the same this way. From 2 to 1, 2, 3. To negative 2 is also 4. Okay, So yeah, the radius is going to be 4 units long. And you just have to be able to look at these and count them to see. Alright, now we're going to take these numbers. We have our H, our K, and our R. That's hard to say, our R. Okay. So we've got X, and then notice it's minus. So we've got a positive H here, but it's minus in the formula. So you're going to change the sign of whatever this value is in the center. So in this case, it's going to be X minus 2 because it's a positive 2 here. It'd be the other way around. If it was a negative 2 up here, it would change to a positive 2. And then our Y minus our K, which is 2. So remember, change the sign. Squared. We're going to take our radius, so 4. We're going to square it. We're going to get 16. Alright, and then that is the equation of our... Okay, moving on to example 3. Now this just gives us our center and our radius, and we have to plug that in to our formula. So I'm going to rewrite the formula. So X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared equals R squared. So our H and our K are both 0, which is nice. Our R, our radius, is going to be 1/3. So when we plug in our 0, remember that if it's a 0 for H or K, then it can just be X squared. And Y can just be Y squared. And if you're kind of confused at that, look at example 1 and see what we did. It's the exact same thing from example 1. Okay, and then our radius is going to be 1/3 squared. Alright, if you're confused about how to square this, remember that when you're squaring a fraction, you want to square the top, so the numerator, and the bottom number, the denominator, to square a fraction. So 1 squared would just be 1, because that's 1 times 1. And then when you square the bottom one, it would be 3 times 3, which is 9. So it's going to look like this. 1 squared will look like 1 squared over 3 squared. And that's how you end up with 1/9. Zoom this in a little bit to make it easier to see. Okay, and there we go. We have now written that equation using the center and the radius. Alright, I'm going to write the formula in one more time. X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared equals the radius squared. So our X value is our H, Y value is our K, and our radius, obviously, is R. So we need to plug these things in. So remember what we talked about last time, where we changed the sign. Because what happens is you have X minus -3 squared, and Y minus -5 squared. And the radius is 8 squared. So you don't have to write this every time. I'm just showing you that when you have two negatives, you want to turn that into a positive. So X plus 3 squared, and then Y plus 5 squared equals 64, which is 8 times 8. So notice what happened here. This H, you have to change the sign when you put it in the formula. The 5, you also have to change the sign when you put it in the formula. That happens every time. If it's negative, it becomes positive. If it's positive, it becomes negative. Okay? That's important to remember that. Alright, let's move on to example. Alright, for these, we're just working backwards. We're given the equation. We want to go backwards and find the center and the radius. So we want to find our H and K. For this one, if you'll notice, number 5 is a lot like 3. So anytime the center is 0, 0, we will end up with just x squared plus y squared. And that's what we have here. So we know that our center is 0, 0 for this example. And then for 225, that is not going to be the radius. We actually have to do the opposite of squaring it. Notice here we squared 1/3 to get the radius, to get the what you plug into the equation. For here, want to do the opposite. So take the square root of 225, and that's going to be 15, so that makes 15 our radius. Alright, we're going to do the same thing over here. So pause the video and see if you're able to figure out the answer. And I'll go ahead and work through it. So example 6, to find the center, you want to change the sign. So instead of -3, it becomes +3. Instead of +2, it becomes -2. So our center will be 3, -2. And then our radius, you want to take the square root of 16. So it's going to be 4. Alright, great. So we found the center and the radius for both 5 and 6. But then I want you to notice that it says to graph that. So I'm going to show you how we will graph it. You should have this on your assignment. It should be embedded within your assignment. So we're going to use this to help graph. We take this point and we place it on the center, and then we use this to determine what our circle would look like, so what the radius is. Okay, so we've got, for the first one, I want you to look at example 5, and we just solved it. The center is at 0, 0. So we can move it to 0, 0, and then it says the radius is 15 for this equation. So when we are graphing it, we would take this radius and we would move it all the way out to 15, 0. And then this is what it would look like. And you can also scroll out or scroll back in. But that's how you would graph this circle. And this tool is on your assignment as well. Okay, and then I want to show you how to graph. It's not letting me pull this up. There we go. This is the last one. So where the center is at 3, -2. So 3, -2 is our center. And then our radius is going to be 4. So I'm going to go directly from the center. I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4. And we now have what the circle will look like. And you'll just have to select the correct answer. It's multiple choice on your assignment. But yeah, that's number 6. And this is how you use the tool. Okay, I'm going to move on to the advanced example. So it will let me select this. Where we are going to write the equation of a circle, where C is at 0, 0, and a point on the circle is 4, -3. So we've got 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. We can go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 3. And, you know, if we draw our circle, it would look better than that. But that's what it would be. And we've got to figure out the length of this line. So why do we have to figure that out? Well, because that's the radius. We know that our center is 0, 0. So we know that it's just going to be x squared plus y squared equals, but we need to figure out our radius. And what I'm going to do is move back to that tool, because I just think it's easier to look at it that way. Where the center is 0 and the point is 4, -3. All right, we've got this line right here. And I want you to notice that you can do one of two things. You can use the distance formula, or you can use Pythagorean theorem, where it goes down 3 over 4, and you plug that into the Pythagorean theorem. So I'll show you, maybe with a different colored pen. So we've got 3 and 4. We're trying to figure out the hypotenuse of that triangle, and that will find us our radius. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 9 plus 16 equals c squared. 25 is what c squared will be, and we take the square root of that, and we get 5, and what that gives us is our radius. So we have now found our radius, and when we plug that in, remember that we have to square that number. So don't forget that. Don't just put 5 in because it'll be the wrong answer. Because we're writing the equation of the line. Yes. Alright, our last problem gives us the center as 4, 5, and a point on the circle is 0, 8. So I prefer using the tool and just plotting those 2 points. So here's my center, and I will put it on 4, 5, and then a point on the circle is 0, 8. Oh no, that's 8, 0. Oh goodness. What's my brain doing? Okay. And it's the same idea here, except I'll show you how you use distance formula, because 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is actually the same as before. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle, so the length of that is 5 units long. But if you are able to zoom this in and look at it, I think it's so much easier just to count the sides and use Pythagorean theorem. But I'll show you an example with distance formula as well. So this is going to be our x1, y1, and our x2, y2. We'll use distance formula. Square root of parentheses x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So 0 minus 4 squared plus 8 minus 5 squared. And then you get negative 4 squared. Remember, when you are squaring a negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And this becomes 3 squared, so 9. So we'll end up with the square root of 25 again. So our radius is 5. And when we plug this into the equation, we want to turn that radius into a 25. Because it's x minus r h, so minus 4. I'm just plugging it into the equation now. X minus 4 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals the radius squared, which is 25. So really the hardest part about these problems is either using Pythagorean theorem or distance formulas to solve for the radius. Everything else you already have center, so you're plugging in points to the formula. Alright, bye guys.